In 1968, in the midst of the horrors of the Vietnam War, history took an even darker turn. The dead began to rise, and in an instant, mankind was hurled into an existential struggle for survival. Governments collapsed, enemies fed on the chaos, and legends were forged. And in this week's incredible episode, it all comes to a head. A final battle between light, dark, and madness itself. And meanwhile, on the other side of the globe, the truth behind the zombie outbreak finally emerges as rival factions fight to seize control of America's ruins. All that and more awaits in today's shocking conclusion. Hey guys, I'm your host Juan, here today for a 68 finale. It's been a long journey, and I'm honored to have taken it with you all. I know it took a while, but I'm a perpetually nostalgic chap. And I know when it's all said and done, I'll look back and miss being in the thick of it one day. But that's just me. Also, by the way, I'm kind of recovering from a sickness, so I apologize because I know the audio narration's going to sound kind of off. Yeah, it's probably from all the black mold I've been eating. But I'll stop yapping, okay? Today's story was written by Mark Kidwell, and it features art done by Jeff Zernow, with colors by Fotos. And, by the way, just so you're not confused, today's story kind of works backwards, in that we jump years after the cliffhanger ending in Rule of War, and we're slowly filled in as to what happens, via flashbacks and the like. But before we get into all of that, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can stay in the loop with all the latest videos. Also, make sure you turn off restricted mode in your settings. I guess it's a new YouTube setting that hides the more R-rated content like this, if you don't turn it off. So yeah, do that. But alrighty then, let's jump right in. Our story opens in New York City on January 6, 1970, a nearly 2-year time jump from all the previous stories. We see a panicked man race through the snowy streets, carrying a package and glancing over his shoulder in fear. And that would be because a deranged figure in a trench coat is chasing after him. But someone is looking out for the scrambling prey, and with a precise shot, they take out the pursuer. However, the man is not out of the clear yet. Emerging from the alleyways like rats are more of those crazed trench coat-wearing maniacs who bum-rush the guy, screaming about how he's about to be dinner. But the man is rescued once again by several people, covered head to toe in thick winter clothes. The man tries to tell them that he's from the government, and he's carrying top-secret State Department intel, but his heroes simply reply that there is no government, and they then continue battling the aggressive weirdos. And oddly enough, the most effective shot in the skirmish is this young kid who fearlessly blasts away the fiends, muttering under his breath about how they're apostles. Whatever the case, though, the area is cleared, and the frozen city falls silent once again. From there, we jump over to the Flatiron Building in Manhattan, which has turned into a kind of survivor hotel and community, run almost like a DMV, with a bunch of prospective occupants waiting for their name to be called, so they may be interviewed and hopefully assigned a place. Among them is a young mother holding her toddler, anxious cause the guy next to her is schizoing out and getting agitated about how the girl he liked was eaten by a psycho named Teddy Calhoun. The woman tries her best to ignore him, and fortunately her name, Jennifer Love, is called. She goes to the front and meets the administrator. It's Henry J. Watson, who somehow made it back to the United States during the time jump, and he still needs support for his injured leg, even after all this time. But be that as it may, the woman shakes Watson's hand, and in good humor, she jokes that she hasn't quite gotten used to the name Jennifer Love yet, because she spent so much longer under her maiden name, Jenny Peace. But the two's attention is quickly diverted by a giggling toddler crawling across the floor. Watson scoops the kid up and introduces him as Joseph Quen, Alice's son, confirming that she also made it back from Vietnam at some point. And Jenny has already met her, because as it turns out, Alice took her husband, Johnny Love, on some sort of mission. And if you think that that mission might be related to the action we saw at the beginning, you would be right, because we see Johnny chilling on a roof with Curly Dan Hickok, keeping a protective eagle-eye watch over Alice, Crazy Horse John Samson, and the Apostle Kid, as well as the man they rescued on the streets. By the way, the guy introduces himself as Carl Royce, and he explains to the crew that he's on a special envoy mission to deliver classified information on behalf of a joint venture between the United Nations and the U.S. State Department. Alice reiterates to him that no, it's been a free-for-all ever since Lyndon Johnson's self-annihilation 2 years ago. But nevertheless, Carl here insists that the U.S. government was actually reformed 7 months ago when UN-appointed President Richard Nixon brokered a deal with an undisclosed certain someone in California. But before he can elaborate further, he's abruptly seized by a disgusting zombie that forces itself out of an underground subway tunnel. It begins eating Carl alive, and he screams for help. Alice quickly shoots him and the beast in the head, but the sound attracts dozens more of the undead from the depths, and our heroes are forced to run for their lives. Samson asks where the hell they're gonna go, and Alice yells over the noise that she knows a place nearby, they just have to get there. So they all sprint after her, confused when she suddenly stops outside the door of this rundown market shop. And that feeling soon gives way to concern, because Alice proves unable to force open the front door because it's barricaded and locked. And all hope seems to be lost, because the zombie horde closes in on them. But then, to everyone's astonishment, the building's second-floor windows open in unison, and a line of men begin hurling Molotov cocktails at the ghouls, cooking them right there on the pavement. And afterwards, the inhabitants come down and hold our protagonists at gunpoint, demanding to know if they're a part of the Vultures, aka the cannibal gang we saw earlier. Alice forcefully denies the charge, and announces that she came here from the Flatiron Building in search of the Quens. And as soon as she says that name, a woman clears her throat and steps into the light. It's Faye Quen, and she asks Alice who she is and how she knows her. The former nurse tears off her mask, and with tears brimming in her eyes, she stuffs a collection of letters into Faye's hands. They're all addressed to her, from her son, Private Quen Yam. Alice's voice shakes as she solemnly declares that Yam is gone, and that she saw him die in Vietnam. And with that, the two women break down in sobs. And as that is going on, in the next room over, Samson and Hickok have a little powwow, because, you see, Hickok has retrieved and just gone through the confidential package that Carl guy was carrying before he got. And what the warrior has discovered is truly shocking. There are 3 items in total. The first is a brand new constitution, proving that there really are forces out there trying to reinstitute control. The second item is quite mysterious. It's a film reel with an ominous note attached, promising to, quote-unquote, explain everything. And the final object is a set of papers detailing the formation of the new government. Apparently, it's a UN-backed world parliament with Richard M. Nixon as the official head of the US. But that's not all. The intelligence also suggests that someone else is sharing power with Nixon from behind the scenes. Allegedly, there's a guy out west who controls a massive confederacy of territory, and the indication is that Nixon needs his continual support to remain in power and to assume control of a unified nation. The stranger is elusive, though, and the intel refers to him only as Charlie. And so we actually do a flashback to 7 months ago, in June 1969, to see what exactly occurred in the reports. On that fateful day in question, Richard Nixon traveled out to an isolated ranch in California to meet an erratic, hyper-energized man wearing a mask with a US flag draped around his shoulders like a cape. It's Charlie. Nixon stands in silence as the eccentric man prattles on non-stop about music, helter-skelter, and about his great, beloved family. Nixon turns his back on the man and slowly draws a gun out of his pocket. And as he does so, Charlie changes the subject, cheerfully laughing about how he's okay with Tricky Dick being the public president, as long as he remembers that all decisions meet Charlie's mutual approval beforehand. But then, in a blink of an eye, Charlie suddenly turns stone cold dead serious, and he tells Nixon that he can either continue to play with his gun there and get his shit rocked by Charlie's army, or he can put it away right now and join the family. Nixon huffs, and he clenches his fists and stomps back to the car. As he leaves, Charlie calls out to him, and he orders the prospective president to release the film, as he calls it, and to bring home every American still yet in Vietnam, or else. Nixon angrily snaps at his driver to get him the fuck out of here, and the politician then tightly clasps a piece of fabric over his nose and gets into the car. He turns to the seat next to him and froths with rage, ranting about that piece of shit hippie Marxist, Charlie. Nixon asks this person next to him for advice about how to get the rest of the Americans out of Vietnam, and he also wonders if they can hopefully find some kind of way to cut Charlie out of this equation entirely. And so the scene ends with the disturbing reveal that he's actually talking to the zombified top national security advisor, Henry Kissinger, who violently thrashes around in chains, growling and spitting all over the place. But nothing seems out of the ordinary for Nixon, and he shakes his head in agreement, as if the undead animal next to him had actually made a cogent point. So yeah, everyone's pretty much lost their damn mind. Anyway, so we pick back up to the present day now. The next day, actually, January 7th, where we see one of those cannibal vulture guys munching on a human arm when he is jump-scared by a random wooden crate that crashes out of the sky next to him, and it reads on it, U.S. Government Federal Relief. And there are tons of these crates descending from the skies across New York City, stocked full of food, fuel, and medical supplies. And at the Flatiron Building, Alice rushes to inform Faye of this strange development, but she is halted when she discovers the older woman reading over Yam's letters, crying. She tells Alice that she wishes her husband, Joe, was still here to read the letters too. Alice tenderly looks at her and recalls how Yam used to talk about his father a lot. Faye sadly shakes her head and tells Alice that she'll share her story of Joe if Alice promises to reveal the last stand of Yam. Alice agrees, and so we slip into a long, extended flashback that fills in the details of what happened to the Quens from the last time we saw Joe and Faye in Rule of War. Naturally, that takes us back to April 1968 on Pitt Island, which was a survivor commune run by former child actress Ardelia Brower and her uncomfortably weird son, Kenny. Anyway, as it were, if you recall, the Quens were vegetarians, so they refused to eat the strange exotic meat provided as food. And so, on the fateful day in question, Joe and Faye had snuck off to enjoy a private picnic together with canned fruit and vegetables that Faye swiped from the cellar. But nevertheless, their meal was cut short, cause Joe noticed something shocking behind some trees. It is the marooned boat of the guy who brought them to the island, who completely disappeared one day, and of whom Ardelia had assured them that he had voluntarily departed the commune on good terms. The two rummage around on the boat and find only a pistol and some drugs. So yeah, this is all kind of deeply concerning, and it recontextualizes all of the weirdness that went on the island. So Joe and Faye quickly formulate a plan to escape on the boat, but they decide to first see if they can find any of their friends to take with them. So they rush back to camp, but it's eerily still, and not a sound stirs. The couple cautiously pushes open the tent, and they horrifically discover a bloody axe lying next to a severed head. Joe starts vomiting, and as Faye jumps around in panic, a pair of rough hands grab onto her. It's a hideous zombie, which damn near gets a tasty chomp before Joe comes to his senses and hacks away at the monster with the axe. However, he is not a natural brawler, and he's knocked down by the creature. But thankfully, Faye is there, and she delivers the final blow, splitting its head open like she's chopping wood. But it's not exactly happy times, and the couple argues about what to do next. They both want to be absolutely certain that they're not leaving anyone behind, so they tenuously agree to split up and to comb the island. The plan is for Faye to take the pistol and check out Ardelia Brower's creepy mansion, while Joe is going to take the axe to the farmhouse to see if he can find anybody. The two tightly hug each other and agree that they need to be on the boat and ready to leave in 30 minutes, no matter what. So we first follow Joe, who silently creeps up to the rundown barn on the edge of the island. His heart is pounding a million miles an hour, and his knuckles are damn near white from clutching the axe so hard. He winds up turning a corner, and his breath is nearly taken away. It's one of his friends, Lou, slouched over in a chair, missing an entire ankle and foot. He jolts awake and starts screaming his head off, and Joe hears a low voice from behind him, grumbling that it's all just meat. It's Kenny, in drag, towering over the trembling man. I'm not going to get into this shit again, so let's just say that there's a lot of psychological scarring going on here, and leave it at that. Anyway, Kenny licks his yellow teeth and eagerly gloats that Ardelia told him he could kill and eat anyone on the island, except a little girl that his mom dragged into the house. And that little fact is about to make up the startling scene Faye is about to discover. When she enters the house, all the lights are off except on the top floor, where there is this deafening music playing, so loud that you can't even think straight. Faye pushes open the door and finds Ardelia screaming at the crying little girl to keep doing this dance routine over and over again. Faye orders the demented witch to freeze, but the crazed Ardelia threatens to pull a string she has attached to 2 grenades if she's unable to continue training her protege. The old woman shrieks that she's going to do it right this time, and there's not going to be any more groping, perverted producers and directors this go around. Yeah, right. So anyway, Faye takes this opportunity to go ahead and shoot Ardelia's hand off, and she takes the kid and bolts. Ardelia, for her part, crumbles to the floor, and she loses her wig and incoherently banshee screams that she's ready for her close-up as the grenades explode and rip her apart. And meanwhile, at the barn, things are going horrifically. Kenny slams the cleaver into Joe's shoulder, and our man tries to fight back, but the freak is about 2.5 times his size. The maniac snorts like a pig and pries the axe out of Joe's hands with a wheezy laugh. And then, with a sinister smile, Kenny looks down at Joe and swings the axe down hard on his stomach with a terrible chop. But before the butcher can deliver the final blow, he's unexpectedly stabbed through the back of the skull by Lou, who has managed to come to just in time. And so Kenny collapses onto the floor with a heavy thud. And then, with great strain, Lou manages to pull the axe out of the crying Joe. The 2 men slump over in pools of their accumulating blood. They know they're going to die, and Joe promises to make sure Lou doesn't come back. He then uses his own blood to write a message, which he plants on his chest, and then he staggers away from the barn, which he has set on fire. He's moving toward the boat meetup point, where Faye is nervously waiting for him, and then, out of the shadows, he stumbles towards her, with bluish skin and hands outstretched, quickly lunging toward her. And so, in a split-second reaction, Faye shoots him cold in the head. The woman sobs in pain because she realizes that she could still see Joe's breath in the cold winter air, and her worst fears are realized because she reads the note Joe wrote, which apologizes for the final deceit. You see, Joe was dying, yes, but he hadn't completely turned yet, and he pretended to had already have been a zombie, because that was the only way Faye would ever be able to do what needed to be done. So that concludes the flashback story and takes us back to the present. All this time later, Faye still carries with her the mournful shame that she killed her own husband while he was technically still alive. Alice tightly squeezes her, but all of a sudden the door bursts open, and Watson, with bated breath, tells the 2 that the secret film reel is all set up in a working projector, and they're gonna want to see this. But before we get to find out what's on the tape, we first drift to 2 very different but brief scenes going on in the world at the same time. The first takes us to Richard Nixon's fortified base in California, where a mysterious figure draped in black hops off their motorcycle, gets on a perch, and stares down the scope of their long-distance rifle. And down below, we see Nixon hilariously raging because Kissinger is not able to play croquet right. But anyway, out of nowhere, the advisor's head pops like a balloon, It's sniper fire, and Nixon himself gets assassinated while he makes his famous hand gesture. But from there, we make a hard cut to Vietnam, where an American prisoner is mumbling to themselves in a cage in the jungle. But then, all of a sudden, a man in leafy camouflage pops out of the brush and tells the prisoner to shh. He then silently uses his hands to give the go-ahead signal to a line of uniformed men crouched behind him. And with that, all hell breaks loose as dozens of men wearing gas masks storm the area, screaming, "Jungle Jim!" as they, alongside a canine, slaughter the captors of the prisoners. And watching this from the hill are two men also in Jungle Jim helmets. The two proudly observe their army here. 57 guys, all named and dressed as Jungle Jim. So yeah, very odd goings on, but that's where we leave all that. Instead, we return to the Flatiron Building. Everyone gathers in front of the projector and takes a seat, popcorn in hand, eager to finally find out the truth behind the apocalypse. And so the show begins, and the grainy footage begins to roll. It's a secret top clearance level report from the CDC explaining their research into the rising undead. The scientist on the film explains that they have concluded that the only portion of the zombies truly alive in any meaningful way is the brainstem. All other parts of the creature's bodies are actively decomposing, just incredibly slowly. And so, naturally, that's where the scientists decided to direct their research, and they determined that the agent responsible for the delayed cellular breakdown is actually a very common food preservative known as spitzbutskillen, also known as Spice Batch 68. The chemical was originally formulated as far back as the 50s. However, when it was tested on animal subjects, it was found that the first 67 variations induced this hyper-violent behavior. But eventually, finally, the 68th batch of spitzbutskillen produced seemingly no ill side effects. Therefore, in no time at all, it was officially launched to the public, and it ultimately found its way into every commercial food produced in the United States, and it was exported elsewhere too for over a decade. And as the CDC guy explains, it all worked fine enough, I guess, until late December 1967, when a space observatory in Arizona picked up through their telescope this massive comet speeding toward the Earth at record-breaking pace. And as the week went on, unbeknownst to the general public, the world almost ended. You see, the scientists across the planet soon realized that this gigantic comet was barreling into a direct collision course with Earth. However, as fate would have it, by the grace of God, the celestial body just narrowly passed the planet, and those who were in the know let out a collective sigh of relief. But sadly, this wasn't the end of the story. No, there was a new problem. The comet was so close to the Earth that the planet was forced to bake under its radiated comet's tail for weeks. So, going past the new year into 1968, scientists discovered that every single complex chemical formulation and bond on Earth was fundamentally altered. All of them were irradiated and mutated, which meant that every single synthesized drug, medicine, cleaning agent, you name it, all of them took on strange new properties they didn't have before, and that includes Spice Batch 68. Now every single person with that preservative in their system reanimates upon death, not as who they once were, but as empty, slowly rotting husks. And like I said, their brainstem is the only thing that functions, and tests have proved that the undead cannot in any way see as we understand it. Instead, rather, they sense the living. The CDC guy declares that the undead are functionally a new human subspecies. They act according to their own self-preservation, like all other organisms. You see, the zombies eat people because they want the preservatives in our blood. And they want that because it can help slow down their own decomposition, just a little bit with every single bite. But the classified report abruptly ends there. The scientist on the video stuffs a gun in his mouth, and he pulls the trigger. And with that, the film sputters out, and our heroes are left completely speechless. Alice is the first one to break the silence when she notices little baby Joseph happily gnawing away on a brick of chocolate. She seizes the candy from the baby and nearly faints when she looks at the ingredients list. It's Spice Batch 68. Some minutes later, Watson and Faye find her outside, smoking and trying to make sense of all this. It's a cruel, cold world out there, and it turns out she's not as immune to it as she thought. Watson takes Joseph inside, and Alice turns to Faye, ready at last to reveal the full story of Private Yam. Naturally, this takes us back to April 1968, when the lovers, Yam and Alice, were still with their friends and comrades in that massive jungle base from the end of Rule of War. Everyone was there. Agent Rule, Watson, Chief Tremaine, and of course, Brian Curlis, the Jungle Jim. But as you recall, dark times were on the horizon. Outside the base lurked a menace, threatening to strike. And this is where our story really begins. The warrior Bien, who Alice was deeply jealous of, informs the couple that there is enemy movement on the perimeter and to be on alert. The details are hazy. All they know is that it's some crazy guy wearing another man's face like a mask. Jungle Jim declares that he spots, through his binoculars, a personal army of zombies numbering in the hundreds, all under the command and training of the ghoul named Warface. The psychotic madman shouts that it's feeding time, and with that, he charges at the base and the battle begins. It's incredibly chaotic, and both sides throw everything they got at each other. Explosions rock the air, and Warface's zombies even start firing guns at our heroes. So despite their best efforts, the survivors soon become overwhelmed, outgunned, and outmanned. Jim orders a fallback, and Yam and Bien comply, but in the process, they sadly bear witness to Bien's sister, Dio, getting stabbed with a bayonet. Bien howls in rage, and she ends up shooting her own sister in the head to stop her from coming back. And as that is going on, Hickok, Alice, and Maggie are desperately smashing buttons on a downed chopper, trying to get it started. However, it doesn't work, and they soon come to the petrifying realization that Warface flanked them. The frontal assault was a mirage, and he funneled zombies into the base from the sides to trap our heroes. And the crew is totally taken by surprise, and they damn near get trampled by a mob of the undead. But when all hope is lost, Jungle Jim flies onto the scene like an angel, and he exterminates the vermin with killer efficiency. And in fact, the luck seems to be turning around because a loud buzzing fills the skies as a Navy helicopter swoops by and descends. As it turns out, Hickok was right way back when he speculated about there being US forces still out there somewhere. In any case, Alice, Maggie, and Hickok jump on board, but Jungle Jim? He turns around and runs straight back into the battlefield to go assist the other pockets of survivors. And one such group is Yam, Bian, Watson, and Agent Rule, who have stuck together fighting it out. Oh, and of course, Nero, the combat dog, he's there too, and he totally saves Watson from a degenerate zombie. Unfortunately, the same can't be said for Chief Petty Officer Tremaine, who got isolated from the larger group during the madness. He holds his own pretty well though, but then he hears this excited voice call out to him, and it's the dreaded Warface, who cackles and shoots Tremaine several times. The psycho gets on top of Tremaine's twitching body, and he tells the dying man to close his eyes, and then he pops out a knife and starts slashing away at the guy's face. But meanwhile, Jim has joined the larger group and has helped clean up there. Everyone makes a dash for the copter, except Jim, who stands there rigid like a statue. Yam urges him that they gotta go, but Jim replies that Tremaine's still out there, and no man gets left behind. But time is rapidly running out, and as Yam makes it to the plane, a hailstorm of bullets start raining down on them. And sadly, Maggie is struck and killed in the gunfire. The Navy pilot crew shout over the noise that they need to take off in about 60 seconds, cause this plane was only a courtesy check. Their admiral had ordered a general airstrike over the area. He basically commanded all the jets to drop everything they had over here in order to get rid of it. And their arrival is imminent. Jim is of course ignorant to this, and he searches for the chief amid the mayhem of battle. And by what seems like the grace of God, out of the smoke stumbles Tremaine, clutching his face, pleading for help. The man cries that he can't see, and Jim tells him to stay strong and keep moving straight. But it's not really Chief Tremaine. It's just his face. And, well, the coward Warface, he impales our fearless hero, Jungle Jim, straight through the back with a machete. Immediately, the air shifts, and Yam lets out an angry cry, and he bolts out of the plane, guns blazing. Agent Rule shakes his head in disbelief, and then he too, along with Bian and Nero, storm out after Yam. But that takes us back to the present, where Alice appears visibly shaken, recounting all of this to Faye. But she nevertheless finds it in herself to finish the story, and to verbally articulate the hard reality of what had happened. That, mere seconds after they left, the plane took off, and the last thing Alice saw was multiple other jets plunging in after them and firebombing the entire area. So, with the harrowing truth revealed, we move on now to close up a few remaining loose threads, starting super briefly with those trench coat cannibal vulture guys. In short, they all hung themselves. I guess they were unable to live with the guilt of what they had done after they got the government-issued food earlier. Whatever the case, that one Canadian constable guy from the Homefront video, he shows up out of nowhere and gathers up their kids and brings them to the Flatiron Building. Yeah, that's literally it, yeah. Anyway, we next transition back to Charlie's base, where he's awakened at gunpoint by that same covert assassin who took out Nixon. He's already killed Charlie's woman. He jammed a blade in her neck, but now he's got a big fish. He orders Charlie to get dressed and come outside, where he shows the family guy what happened to all his cult members. All of them are crucified, and most of them gutted. Charlie looks around in wild confusion, and that feeling is doubled when a bunch of biker guys show up out of nowhere. But putting that aside, the assassin explains that he's from Vegas, and they had a nice thing going on down there. Well, that was until it was all rudely interrupted by the power play going on between the two clowns, Charlie and Nixon. And, well, the stranger asserts that, frankly, the world don't need presidents no more. And with that, the assassin tears off his mask in front of the flabbergasted Charlie, and he shoots the hippie's goddamn head off. After the briefest pause, the stranger starts ripping off their dark clothes, revealing a stark white outfit underneath. They fit a distinct helmet on top of their head, and we clearly find out their true identity. It's fucking Evel Knievel, the famous motorcycle riding stunt performer. That's seriously the end of the subplot. He fucking rides off into the horizon. Probably to go find a White Castle to rule or something. I don't know, man. I don't know. In any event, with that all wrapped up, we make a final stop to the Flatiron Building to see our friends for the last time. Faye asks Alice how she ever came to hold Yam's letters in the first place, and the girl responds that Yam made her keep them because, as she speculates, he probably never truly expected to make it back home. Faye doesn't respond to this, but with a mischievous glint in her eyes, she asks Alice how long she and Watson have been a couple. The two shift around uncomfortably, but Faye tells them it's okay. Everyone deserves someone who cares about them. She looks around the room and sees baby Joseph, the Love family, and Samson and Hickok playing cards. Faye smiles. Friends, family, and love. That's all we really have. And so Faye declares that it's up to all of them here today to stick together. It's up to them to learn how to live with the dead, both the kind we fear and the kind we've loved and lost. And with that, the scene fades. Not quite to black, but to the rest of the flashback Alice was unable to see. The part that happened next after she left. Warface stares Yam down and calls him a Viet Cong in American clothing. But Yam is a different guy now, and he's no longer the straight-laced kid who everyone made fun of for looking like the enemy. He's a fighter now, and fighters fight back. So, with absolutely no fanfare, Yam blows Warface to smithereens. Without even a second look, he and Rule began dragging the bleeding-out Jungle Jim away. Warface writhes around in the dirt, plugging up his bullet holes with his fingers, when he hears a low growl directly in his ears. It's Nero, the last thing he ever sees or hears. Our heroes hurry to a secret door in the stone statue on the base, and they dive in, taking cover as the airstrikes flatten the world outside them. And so, dear viewer, we are now treated to what is an epilogue of sorts. We find ourselves in present-day Vietnam, January 8th, 1970, and it's Private Quen Yam. He still lives. A new life now, together with Bien, who's pregnant with his child. And now Yam is decorated in the iconic Jungle Jim uniform. He hasn't inherited the madness, but he did become the co-commander of that Jungle Jim army alongside Agent Rule. Or at least he was the leader, because, well, now all of the jungle gyms are leaving. You see, before Nixon died, he really did manage to send army choppers to bring everyone back home. But Yam, Rule, and Bian are staying. This is where they belong. Yam gazes out pensively over the jungle, and Rule asks what's on his friend's mind. Yam quietly remarks that, they're only a few miles away from where Firebase Ares once stood. Rule chuckles and asks Yam what he's got in his hand there, and Yam opens up his palm to reveal a single bullet with the number 68 carved into it. He had randomly kicked it with his boot and found it on the ground, and he isn't sure if it's supposed to be a good luck charm or not. Rule smirks and tells our man that, whatever the case, he should load it in with the others, 'cause they're gonna need it. The two made a pledge, you see. They made a promise to the dying Brian Curliss to free every last prisoner of war in Vietnam. A new jungle gym charter to last a lifetime. And so in a way, it's 1968 forever. And so, Yam, Rule, and Nero stand out together over a pit of groaning zombies. Their purpose defined, and their work cut out for them. With that, the series concludes with a special message thanking every veteran, past, present, and future, for the service to the country. And that, my friends, is a 68 finale.
Kowalski, analysis.
So, that was 68 Last Rites. Quite a journey this has been. But what are your thoughts on both this specific miniseries and the overall 68 saga? What's your final verdict? Make sure to drop your thoughts in the comment section. I'm pretty eager to see your guys' reaction. I tried to do some research into this book, like the making of it and whatnot, but I couldn't really find any information. Probably because the new Conjuring movie that just came out a few weeks ago, it has the exact same subtitle. And so the internet results are flooded with Conjuring Last Rites. Why do they look constipated? Anyway, I guess I'll share my own thoughts on today's story. I'll break it down into things I liked and the things I didn't like as much. Alright, starting with the things that I liked, I guess number one would be the zombie outbreak explanation. I thought it was really clever. A really novel and creative explanation for, the whole undead thing. Radiated food preservatives. Who would have thought? Another thing I liked was the ending itself. I know Jungle Jim's death is going to be a major focal point of discussion, but I actually didn't really mind it. From the start, it was kind of a role and a mission that was passed down from warrior to warrior. It's actually a little bit dark if you think about it. How Yam and Rule's identity and purpose is so caught up into the Jungle Gym thing that they chose to stay behind. I mean, that's kind of rough for them, not gonna lie, but anyway, another unrelated thing about the ending that I liked was the 68 bullet. I thought that was a pretty nice callback. That kind of brought everything back around full circle. I guess a third thing that I liked was Yam's character arc. He's kind of the only one who had one, TBH, but I guess, from where we saw him at the start of the series till now, he's gone from a bullied outsider to a man with a family and a vision. A guy mocked for being Asian, like the enemy, to being a full-fledged jungle gym. Congrats, man. Congrats. But I guess this all kind of leads into the first thing I didn't really like. Namely, the lack of character development for anyone else. everyone pretty much stagnated hard. And, like, what do I mean by this? Well, let's take Agent Rule, for example. He got a lot of character development in Rule of War. Our understanding of him as a character progressed as we learned about his background, motivations, and just spent more time with him. But in Last Rites, like, what exactly does he do for anybody? And, like, how does his arc, I guess, like, develop or wrap up? I don't know. Or is he just basically, like, doing random things? Could his role in the story have been, like, replaced with anyone? I don't know. Alice is another pretty good example of this. Like, the last time she was actually interesting and had a distinct character was in, like, 68 Scars? I mean, I guess her series arc was originally not knowing how to fire a gun to, by the end, being able to handle one confidently. I guess now that I think about it, most of the characters haven't been or done anything since 68 Scars, which I guess is my number 2 thing. Samson and Hickok, Chief Tremaine. Those guys kind of had personalities and shticks in Scars, but they kind of like faded into background characters by the end. Like Warface too. By the conclusion, he's kind of just reduced to a dork who shrieks in the background, "I'm gonna fucking kill you!" And those weren't even the guys who got it the worst, okay? Audience poll. Ain't no one remember who Maggie is. And so her death is ironically kind of stakeless. And, really, we should have spent so much more time with these characters and seen them survive and bond and interact with each other and at least develop personalities and quirks and whatnot. But yeah. And I guess that is kind of related to my next comment on the whole Nixon, Charles Manson, Evel Knievel stuff. I mean, I thought it was pretty funny, but I don't know what it was doing here. Like, it's way too late to be introducing new stuff at this point. Doubly so when it literally doesn't connect back to the main plot in any way. And it doesn't make any, like, internal, like, coherent sense outside of, like, a satirical suspension of disbelief. But, like, why get included at all, especially at the expense of other things? For that reason, it all feels a little bit shoehorned in, so as to cram in as many references as possible. And that's fine, okay? I'm not trying to hate, okay? But come on, man. In the finale, come on, dog. Look, I know I can sound harsh, but I genuinely do not mean to. I don't hate the series or anything. It's just that I guess as a whole, the finale just doesn't do it for me personally. Nothing against the creators, though. They seem like stand-up people, and I'm sure I'll check out their other stuff in the future. I don't know what you want. I mean, what can I say? I'm a fickle, but not a hateful man, okay? I guess I'll talk about the future channel stuff now. Alright. Look, I know I promised to start this other historical horror series that people are really excited about, but for now, I don't want to because I don't know. Because I don't want there to be as long of a delay between episodes that people are like eagerly anticipating. So I want to like work ahead if I'm going to start another series, and we just got out of one. So that's on hiatus for now, okay? But beyond that, rest assured, okay? 68 may be over, but there are plenty of Vietnam, history, horror, zombie stories. All of that stuff individually and combined. Plenty more. Plenty more to last till Kingdom Come. But I guess that about does it for today's video. I want to thank you for sticking around so long through this. Through thick and thin, really. I couldn't have done it without you guys. we're on a new frontier now. But until next time, I will thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good one.